Alright, here we are back at it with some Algebra 1, Chapter 9, Section 1, Graphing Quadratics. Okay, a quadratic equation is like the ones that we have been looking at, where we have an x squared term, and then plus something x plus a constant. Okay, it can be written in this form. It isn't always written in that form, as we looked at in the last lesson. Sometimes we don't have one of those terms, but it can be written in that form. Now, what we call the parent function, that's just y equals x squared. Now, that would be plus 0x plus 0, and we wouldn't have to write that. Now, if I look at an example how to graph this, if I plug in negative 3 here, negative 3 squared gives me positive 9. And so forth. I could just plug in random numbers and fill in a chart like this. Okay, now notice I have negative 3 here, positive 9. Down here, if I plug in positive 3, I also have positive 9. Okay, so what this looks like, if we graph all these points, and there's 0, 0, 1 and 1, negative 1 and 1, and so on, it looks like this. If I connect those dots, I get a shape that is called a parabola. Alright, now, within that parabola, there's a few things that I should know. Okay, with a quadratic equation, the parent function is f of x, which, remember, that's the same thing as y, just that's the name of the function, f of x, or y equals x squared. In standard form, we have y, or f of x, equals a x squared plus bx plus c. So some number and x squared, some number and x, and then just a number by itself, a constant. The graph is a parabola. That's this form right here. And then the axis of symmetry, this right here. It's time to memorize, ladies and gentlemen. And this negative, we can put that up top. You can remember negative b over 2a. Okay, so probably anytime you see us write this, it's going to be negative b over 2a. This is how we will use it. It's just easier to remember that way. Negative b over 2a. Remember, with a fraction, it doesn't really matter where the negative goes, but for our sakes, we'll put it up top. Negative b over 2a. So memorize that. Axis of symmetry, negative b over 2a. And then the y-intercept is again the constant. Okay, just like with the linear equation, y equals mx plus b, that last number was the constant. The constant here is the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, then another term you need to know is the vertex. Vertex is either the highest point, if it opens downwards and it goes towards negative infinity here, then the highest point is called the maximum value. And the lowest point, if it opens upwards, so this is a positive function opening upwards, has a minimum. Remember, to determine y min or maximum, a flow like Miyagi telling you to wax it on. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right here. Okay. To find the extremes, determine y min or maximum, a flow like Miyagi telling you to wax it on. Use a table to graph. Okay? So that's just pick your favorite numbers, plug them in, and then see what you get for y. Okay, so we're going to plug in 1 for x, because that's an easy one to calculate with. If I plug in 1, I get 5 for y. Plug in 0 for x. That's an easy one to calculate with. I get negative 4. Remember, when x is 0, that's the y-intercept, right? When x is 0. So that's negative 4. Plug in negative 1 into each of these, and I get out negative 7. Plug in negative 2, get negative 4, negative 3, and 5. So now I have a whole table of values. This is enough to approximately graph this. You'll see we're going down, 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 and then we're going back up, up again. Okay, so the lowest point here, I, by coincidence, guessed it right. I got negative 1 there, so then we can graph all the way down to that lowest point and back up again. Okay, where this mirrors, notice that these values, we have -4 here and -4 here, 5 here and 5 there. Where it mirrors at -1, that is called the axis of symmetry. Okay, when x is -1, that's the axis of symmetry. Then it crosses where x is 0, that's the y-intercept. Okay, that's the constant term. Okay, the y-intercept where it crosses. So some of these terms are new, some are old and should be familiar. All right, and then the domain and range. Remember, domain x, range y. The x values. Now it's hard to tell, but this keeps going in this direction. Okay, ever so gradually. Down here you can tell that it's going outwards, but here it looks like it's going straight up, but actually it keeps going ever so slightly this way. So if you go on for infinity, it's going to go to the left, so towards -infinity. And here this is going to go towards positive infinity. So the domain is all real numbers, or you could write it in this form: from, not including, -infinity to, not including positive infinity. And the range is from, range is the y values, from 7 included to positive infinity. All right, we want to look at this and identify a few characteristics. The vertex. Vertex is the lowest or highest point. In this case, it's the lowest point, so that's a minimum. Okay, and that is right here at 0 and -1 and 0, sorry. -1 and 0. The axis of symmetry, where this is mirrored, is this line right here, is where x is -1. That's the axis of symmetry. And the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, is 1. Notice the axis of symmetry and the x value of the vertex are the same. We will be using this information later on. All right, we want to identify characteristics here. Okay, first off, remember the 2 is the A, 4 is the B, -3 is the C. So we'll write that out for ourselves, because now when I want to find the vertex, remember you've memorized this vertex formula, x is -b over 2a. Now I can plug that in. Put 4 in for B. So then we have -4. Put 2 in for A. So -4 over 2 times 2, which gives us an x value at the vertex of -1. The x value at the vertex is -1. So that is our axis of symmetry, the x value. Now we can plug that back into our original formula for x, here and here. Okay, that's what we get here. Solve this and we get the y value for the vertex, and that's 2. So we have, it's -5, so we have a vertex of -1 and -5. Then the line of symmetry, axis of symmetry, is the same as the x value at the vertex. Okay, so that's -1. And then the y-intercept is our constant here. So that's -3. Now I can graph this. If I have a vertex on the graph, I can put the lowest point there. I can say it's mirrored across that point. I know where the y-intercept is, and then graph it. All right, so that's about all. I know that's a lot to digest for today, but we will be working with this quite a bit. So remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you all tomorrow.